All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Shalom to the elect, those that are fighting to endure to the end, and that are calling on the names of the Father and the name of the only begotten Son, which are Yahweh, which is the name of our Heavenly Father, meaning He is, and or Wah Yahweh Shai, which is the only begotten Son's name in the Paleo Hebrew, which means He is our salvation. All right, Shalom. Okay, and today's sermon or lesson is, as you can see from the thumbnail, the mark of the beast is literal and physical. Okay, the mark of the beast is literal and physical. All right, because there's a lot of hucksters and leaders of camps, particular Hebrew Israelite camps, that's insinuating or saying that the mark of the beast is something different than what it is. Okay, using scriptures, twisting scriptures to make it fit their narrative. All right, when we know that the mark of the beast is a literal device and physical, okay, it's going to be used to literal buy and sell. All right, there's no other way of getting around it. All right, whether you want to go to other scriptures, particularly those in the Old Testament, and find words that says Mark or Marcus and try to spin the narrative. No, we know that the mark is a literal and physical thing. All right, as it says in Revelation 13 and 16 and 17, that you will not be able to buy or sell. That is a literal description of what the mark is going to accomplish. Okay, now you saying that the mark is sin, ask yourself, how are you going to go to a store and buy or sell with sin? Okay, it doesn't make sense. All right, it does not make sense one iota. All right, how are you going to prove that you sin for the day in order for you to buy or in order for you to sell? There's just no proof behind that. All right, that's a man-made doctrine. All right, which is why you have to be careful and mindful of those that you follow. Okay, because why? They're doing the work of Yahweh deceitfully. All right, and they're telling you that you can take the RFID microchip. I know, Salaki, they're saying that if the RFID microchip was to come out where it's made mandatory for you to take it in order for you to have a job or in order for you to receive services, they're saying on one hand that you can take it, but on the other hand, they're saying that it's not the mark of the beast. So make that make sense. All right, you're double-minded, and as it says in James 1 and 8, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. All right, and as it also says in the book of Ecclesiasticus, or Sirach 10 and verse 2, so is the judge, so is the people. All right, so your leaders that you're following after that can't tell you what it is because of whatever backdoor deal they have taken to compromise their integrity are going to mislead you and lead you astray when that time comes. All right, when that time comes for the whole world to be tried, as it's spoken of in Revelation 3 and verse 10, and that's another cut. All right, because you got other groups, particular, I'm thinking of one in particular, IUIC, that says every time you see the hour of temptation, it's associated with destruction, trying to insinuate or trying to come forth outright and say that Revelation 3 and 10 is speaking of something else other than when the microchip is made mandatory and what? It's going to try the whole earth. All right? It's going to try the whole earth, and they can't get around that. All right? And the only way they can get around it is if you've been deceived. All right? Because as it says in Job 12 and 16, the deceiver and the deceived are his. All right? So if you've been believed, or if you've been taught to believe that the mark of the beast is anything other than what it is, a physical device, just look at your screen, look at the thumbnail, and you're going to see. If you've been taught that it's anything else other than that microchip the size of a grain of rice that they're going to put in your right hand, or they're going to come out with a version that they're going to put in your forehead, you've been deceived, okay? And rightfully so, because why? You didn't believe the truth. You believed the lie, all right? The Most High, Yahweh, through his only begotten son, Yahweh Shai, is making it known who he's dealing with. Just by this one prophecy alone, all right? It's evident. You can tell that they want to disassociate themselves with this mark of the beast as much as possible, all right? IUIC, ISUPK, HOI, the list goes on and on, AOC, all right? All of these are Israelite camps that I was watching coming into the truth back in 2018, okay? And one thing I seen, although they sound good from the perspective that, you know, Israel is going to be saved, this and that, when it came down to the mark of the beast, it didn't make sense, all right? And then you got GMS that goes into it and breaks it down thoroughly, and not only thoroughly, but they harp on it, okay? They make it known that that's the major prophecy, all right? Now, alongside with GOCC, they were talking about the mark of the beast and what it was, but now I believe they switched it up, all right? I don't believe they are saying that it's the RFID microchip. See, all these other camps, they're trying to lead you astray and pretty much have you go after your own understanding, okay? When the RFID microchip is made evident that that's what the mark of the beast is, all right? And if you can't get it, the Lord isn't dealing with you right now, all right? Now, is it possible for you to get it before it's made mandatory? Sure, if you're of the elect. But if you're not going to understand it. You're not going to get it because why? You've been given over to itching ears, all right? You've been given over to those that you can say, oh, they got a large following, or oh, they got the most, you know, decked out garments on or whatever, all right? You're not looking as far as their doctrine. And even in examining their doctrine may sound and legit, but when it comes down to this one particular prophecy, they go off completely outfield, all right? And it doesn't line up what the scriptures say. You have to be able to buy and sell. That is the hallmark sign or telltale of what the mark of the beast is. If you can't buy and sell with sin, sin is not the mark of the beast. If you can't buy and sell with sleeping with a white woman, sleeping with a so-called white woman is not the mark of the beast, okay? It's easy if you're doing the work truthfully. But if you're doing the work deceitfully, then it's going to be hard for you to get around that. You're going to try to go to each and every precept that you think you got to make sense of what you're telling your congregation or your flock to what the mark of the beast isn't than what it is, and you're going to be exposed at the end of the day, okay? Because it's only so long a false prophet can continue before they're exposed in their works, all right? So let's go ahead and open up. Let's go ahead and open up in 2 Timothy chapter 4. This is the book of 2 Timothy chapter 4, and let's start at verse 7. This is 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 7. It reads, I have fought, this is Paul, a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. See? So you have to understand, you can't compromise what you've been taught to fit in or to just be part of a group just because when you know good and well that what they teaching, they going off and not just teaching, but deliberately teaching that, all right? And you can't fight that, okay? Because why? The Lord has put a spirit on them to be just that deceivable, okay? But if you continue to, fellowship with them and, continue to be part of that, knowing that they're going off deliberately, then what more can you say, okay? Other than you deserve everything you get. So this is 2 Timothy 4:7. It reads, I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. See? And this is what being part of the elect is. You have to keep that faith. All right. Not just that the mark of the beast is indeed the RFID microchip that is coming to pass in our lifetime sooner than we believe. All right. As it says, for now is our salvation sooner than we believe. Okay. We can't get delivered or saved until that RFID microchip is made mandatory. So question and ask yourself, why are these camp leaders from these other groups telling you that it's everything other than what it is? Because they have made their nest, their home here in Babylon the Great. They have exploited you and your weakness and your fearness of not knowing what the Bible is speaking of, okay? Because they can go into a few precepts and break them down, but when it comes to what the mark of the beast is, they shun from that. They don't want no part of that. And when they do go into it, they break it down deceitfully. As we're going to go into some of their precepts that they use horribly to show that the mark of the beast is not the RFID microchip. So it says 2 Timothy 4:8. It says, henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at the day, and not to me only, but unto all them also that love his appearing. Right. And this is why we're hastening in the day of the Lord. All right. And we know that he can't come unless this RFID microchip be made mandatory. All right. Because the chip is already out, but it hasn't been made mandatory. That's the prophecy that we're waiting on. We waiting on this devil to make it mandatory, all right? And the mere fact that you got Israelite camp leaders that's telling you that it's not the RFID microchip, showing you that they're not waiting for the appearing of our Lord to come, because they want this system, this society, this kingdom to go on forever, all right? They want to continue to make money off you. They want to continue to use you as merchandise. They want to continue to play on your fear, all right? So as long as there's no one holding them accountable, they can do just that, all right? But every now and then, when this topic comes up, oh, do they start to shake in their boots? Oh, do they try to run to other words in other languages, particularly the Hebrew, to explain a word that's spoken of in the Greek? They try everything under the sun to tell you what it is, except for admitting to what it actually is, okay? So it says, the righteous judge shall give me at that day, which is who? Yahweh, all right? If we endure and we keep the faith all the way up until the end, the righteous judge, Yahweh, through his only begotten son, Yahweh Shai, is going to give us that crown, all right? And that entails, or that includes some of us being what? Beheaded for this truth, all right? Some of us are going to be beheaded because, why? We didn't take the RFID microchip. See? That's another important prophecy, all right? If it's sin, how the hell are you going to be able to be beheaded for not taking sin? When sin is something that you do when you break or transgress the law. So you telling me that this kingdom is set up so much that it's a righteous kingdom that if you sin, they're going to behead you? No, because this kingdom in itself sins, all right? It sins in itself. So it would be a hypocrite to tell you, if you sin, we're going to chop your head off or behead you. No, it's if you don't take that RFID microchip, all right? It makes sense when you be truthful with yourself and you be honest with the scriptures, okay? If not, it ain't going to make sense, all right? It's not going to make sense, which is why a lot of these Hebrew Israelite leaders in these camps, they struggle because they're not being truthful. They're not being honest, all right? They're doing the work deceitfully, okay? And you got to ask yourself, is that someone that you want to put your faith in? Or is that someone that you think that you want to rest your salvation on? Because everything else they told you believe is true. But when it comes to this prophecy, particular, what the RFID microchip is, they don't want to be forthright or upright with you. That should speak volume of who you following and who you listening to. If they know distinguishedly that the RFID microchip indeed is the mark of the beast, because they're telling you, if the RFID chip comes out, and I believe this was quoted by Captain Taziak, or however you say his name, from ISP UK, if the RFID microchip comes out, we're not telling you to take it, okay? Well, you telling them to take it if you telling them that it's not. Because if it's not the RFID microchip, then what is it? And it's not sin. And if you're saying don't take the RFID microchip, well, where can we go in the Bible to find out that we're not supposed to take that? All right, it's only one verse that I'm thinking of, and that's Revelation 14, verse 9 and 10. All right? See, you have to be very mindful of who you follow and listen to. All right? That's why you have to examine the whole matter. All right? You got to examine the whole matter. All right? Listen to the doctrine. Is it sound? Is it concrete? Does it add up? Is there chinks? Is there leaks in their armor? All right? Because what they're doing, they're preparing you to be presented to the slaughter. All right? Because your faith is going to be shaky at best. All right? Because why? You didn't seek the Lord with your whole heart. All right? You didn't seek him with your whole heart. You gave pause for concern. You didn't believe wholeheartedly that the RFID microchip or the mark of the beast was the RFID microchip. Because why? You were given over to the hands of those that are doing the work deceitfully. All right? So you have to be mindful of these things. Just because they got a big following, just because they're doing what you perceive to be the Lord's work in the communities, setting up turkey drives, marching, doing all these things, that's all part of the act. Just because they're doing this don't mean they're doing the work truthfully. All right? More so, examine it even more. All right? They're doing everything but what it takes for you to receive your salvation. And that's breaking down the scriptures or the precepts properly. All right? So let's go ahead and jump over to 2 Timothy 3 and 14. This is the book of 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 14. It reads, "But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and has been assured." See, you can't be assured unless you've learned. All right? And they're not teaching their congregation exactly what the mark of the beast is. They're using words like mark of a or mark of a beast. No, it's mark of the beast. All right? We know what the beast is. All right? We know the beast is more subtle than any beast in the field. All right? We know it's Esau, Edom, America, Rome all over again. All right? So we know it's not a beast. We know it's the beast. All right? The most subtle of them all. All right? Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed so-called white man. Okay? So it says, "But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and has been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them." Right. So you have to know who you learn and who you being taught from. All right. Because if they misleading you and doing it deceitfully, then guess what? Their blood is going to be on their hands and yours as well. All right. Because why? You didn't receive the truth. See, you going to get punished and they going to get punished, or blood going to be on their hand for doing the work deceitfully. All right. So this is why we're telling you, hey, this thing is serious, deadly serious. All right. You got to be assured in what you've been taught. All right. And if you're not assured of what the mark of the beast is, because these other camps, these leaders of these other camps has misled you, when that hour of temptation come, you're going to very much well side with what they told you and get it. And guess what? They ain't going to take it. All right. They're not going to take it because why? They know what it is. All right. They know what it is. And should I say what it isn't? They know it ain't sin. They know it's not sleeping with white women. But because the only camp that I can come to mind, and it may be other camps, but one of the biggest camps that's said that it is the RFID microchip, they got to go in opposition with that. All right, they want to go in opposition with what the apostles of GMS and elders of GMS says that it is. They want to say that it isn't what they say that it is, and in doing so, they're not putting their pride aside. All right, if they were really mindful of their congregation, they will put their pride aside and say, you know what? For the well-being or for the sake of our congregation, our camp, we were wrong, and the RFID microchip indeed is the mark of the beast. But see, their pride won't let them, which is why when we read in the book of Sirach 15 and 18, Ecclesiasticus, or the same thing, chapter 15 and 18, although it goes into Jacob's trouble, it can also be applied to these camp leaders and these camps, all right, that has that pride that won't let them admit their fault. Matter of fact, let's go there. Let's go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 15 and verse 18. Because although this is talking about Jacob's trouble, guess what? It can also be applied to these camp leaders that won't let their, won't judge right because they won't let their pride go. All right. This is Second Ezra, chapter 15 and verse 18. This is Second Ezra 15 and 18. It reads, "For because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled." All right. Now this is going into Jacob's trouble, but guess what? It can also be applied to these camps. Because why? These cities are what's comprised of cities are citizens. All right. And because of the pride these leaders have, their cities or their citizens are going to be what? It says, for because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled. They're going to be troubled when they come to that conclusion that the mark of the beast is the RFID microchip. All right. When they're standing in line waiting to get chipped. All right. They're going to reflect and think back to what Captain Tazariak told them, what Bishop Nathaniel told them, what, Sabak, Priest Sabak told them. When they standing in the line, getting ready to be chipped, because their belief in what this microchip wasn't assured, and the time that they had to get it assured, they're gonna be thinking back. They're gonna be troubled. Damn, man. You know what? The apostles and elders of GMS, they had it right all along, man. All right? And that's gonna trouble them, man. It goes in to say, furthermore, the houses shall be destroyed and men shall be afraid. Right. When it comes down to what the mark of the beast is and when it's made mandatory, you can bet your last dollar. If the Lord ain't dealing with you, you're going to be afraid of that in that time. You're going to have terror reigning over you. Because why? You didn't believe the truth. So the Lord's going to give you that strong delusion, all right, to believe a lie, all right? And once you take that chip, because you have no other options and no other way out, if you're not of the elect, that's when the nightmares begin, okay? That's when you're going to have plague of the mind or the heart. See, that's when the Lord really going to allow this devil to show you just exactly who he is, all right? See, right now, you can say it's up for debate. You can say what it is or what it isn't, but when it comes to pass, and it will come to pass, Habakkuk 2 and 3, and you find yourself in that same predicament that you see on that thumbnail with that hypodermic needle coming out and getting ready to put that chip inside your hand, you're going to know then, all right? You're going to know then that what? A prophet has been amongst you, all right? Because that prophecy in Revelation 13 and 16 verses down to 18 is just that. It's a prophecy that hasn't taken place yet, all right? Because if you're saying it's sin, then you're saying that King Solomon had the mark of the beast. All right. And we know that this technology wasn't out and about some 2,000 plus years ago. All right. So we know by your own logic that the mark of the beast can't be sin, okay? Because that's the case, majority of the people already have the mark of the beast right now. And how are they able to go inside the store and buy? Or how are they able to have a business or whatever, whether it's a hot dog stand or concession stand or whatever, and sell or have a business online? If they sinning, you know, because why? We still teaching our people, which also shows you that we're not in the new covenant, because we wouldn't have to teach our people, you know, what the mark of the beast is. But since we have to teach them because they're still sinning, how are they able to buy and sell? When it says, we're going to read that in the prophecy, when it says that you should not be able to buy and sell, save or except you have the mark of the beast. So how are you still buying and selling if you got the mark of the beast? How are you able to buy and sell? Okay? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. So let's read this again. This is 2 Ezra 15 and verse 18. It reads, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled. Right? The citizens or your flock, your congregation, they're going to be troubled because of your pride. All right? Because your pride won't allow you to admit that you were wrong on this. And just teach the correct way. Go into the word charagma in the Greek and break it down the right way. That's all it takes. It's so easy, a caveman could do it. Matter of fact, you got some what looks like to be perceived Edomites that can say and tell you that the mark of the beast is the RFID microchip. But how can't you, an Israelite in the truth, allegedly, discern what the mark of the beast is? Because you're doing the work deceitfully. And your pride won't allow you. So it says, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled. The houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And that goes into your congregation. And like I said, this is talking about Jacob's trouble, but guess what? It also applies to the congregation and leaders of the congregations that's doing the work deceitfully because of their pride, and it won't allow them to admit their fault. All right? See? Vanities of vanities. All right? We all have that vanity, but we have to put that powerful spirit to the side and come into the truth and realization that this isn't about us. It's about the truth. All right? And when you search out the truth, you're going to find it. Lord willing. You're going to find the truth. All right? Because only the truth can shine. All right? The marvelous light. All right? That's what brought us to it, was the truth. We heard that we were the Israelites, the biblical Israelites of the Bible, the so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans. The truth shine. All right? When we heard that, you know, the names of the Father and the only begotten Son, the truth shine. The marvelous light shine. It draws us to the truth. Now it draws all to the truth, but only the elect will remain in the truth. All right? Remain after the spirit of what? Yahweh, which is what? Prophecy. All right? What's that? Revelation 19 and 10. The spirit of Yahweh, who the word English calls Jesus, is the spirit of prophecy. And the mark of the beast is the major prophecy. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 19 and verse 10. It reads, and I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, see thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahweh, which is what? The spirit of prophecy. See? And if you break it down what the mark of the beast is, which is a major prophecy, you're not coming in the spirit of Yahweh, which is the marvelous light that drew us to this truth. All right? You're looking to fill your own belly. All right? And in doing so, you're doing the work deceitfully. And the Lord's going to have a bone to pick with you. All right? He's going to have a bone to pick with those that follow you, and you particular. That's why it says judgment must begin first with the house or with those that know the truth. Roughly paraphrasing, but I believe it's in the book of Ezekiel 9. All right? Where judgment is going to begin with those of you that knew that you was doing the work deceitfully and continue to do it because of your pride. All right? What's that? Let me see. Judgment must begin, because that's what judgment going to begin at. Those that knew that they were doing the work deceitfully, but they didn't fear the Lord. That's why they continue to do it. So, let me look that up. Give me 1 second. This is 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 17. Salaki, I said it was Ezekiel 9, but it was 1 Peter. This is 1 Peter 4 and 17. It reads, "For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of the Most High. If it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of the Most High?" See? So judgment is going to begin with those that knew the truth, that knew the names, that knew what the mark of the beast was, but they deceitfully deceived the people. And then those that were deceived, judgment is going to get them as well. All right? So if you're doing the work deceitfully, you can bet your last dollar that the Lord's going to catch up with you unless you repent. All right? And because of your pride, we know that the houses shall be troubled and the man shall be afraid. You're not going to admit to what you was doing deceitfully, okay? Because why? You have too much pride. Your pride won't allow you to admit that you were wrong, all right? It's easy. I went off, the mark of the beast is the RFID microchip, then you get on about your way, all right? You get on about your way and nothing more. Will you lose members of your congregation? Who knows? But it's not about numbers. If you're doing the work truthfully and honestly, you shouldn't care. Those that are remain, those will be the ones that the Lord dealing with. All right. So let's read this in Revelation 3 and 10. This is the book of Revelation 3 and verse 10. It reads, "Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation." This is not talking about destruction in the sense that America is going to be destroyed, which it is, but this is talking about when they make the microchip mandatory, because it's already out right now. That's why you got thousands upon thousands in Sweden that's taking it, but it hasn't been made mandatory yet. All right, but it will be, and that's going to be the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world. See? Now we know here in America, that's going to be the only country or the only place that's destroyed. But this temptation hour is going to come against or come across the whole world to try all of the people. It says to try them that dwell upon the earth. See? That's what the hour of temptation is. When that microchip, when the RFID microchip is going to be what? Made mandatory. And at that point in time, you're going to have to come to the realization that if you put this device, as you see on your screen for the thumbnail, the size of a grain of rice inside of your hand, you have just now given your allegiance or your commitment or your consent to this beast system. And at that time, at that moment, the Lord no longer deals with you, all right? Your fate has been sealed. Your fate has been sealed once they stick that chip inside of you. And it's going to do miracles, or it's going to be perceived to be doing miracles, because that's part of the lying wonders. It can restore blindness. It can restore hearing. It can restore whatever. That's part of the miracle. That's part of the lying wonders that the beast is going to present. Grandma can walk now. Grandpa can hear you. Whatever. That's going to be all part of the lying wonders that if you take it, there's no coming back from it, all right? So there will be no excuse for your sins. So it says, Revelation 3 and 10, "Because thou hast kept the word of my patience." What is the word of his patience? All right, knowing not to take the RFID microchip, the charagma, all right? Because in doing so, you're serving mammon, all right? You're serving your lust. You're serving the God of this world, all right? So you know not to take it because why? You have kept the word in patience because why? The Lord gives us pastors that will feed us according to his heart, his understanding. All right? And if your pastor isn't telling you what the mark of the beast is, then the Lord is not dealing with them. It says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which is going to what? Which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. See, this is that great trial, that great test that's going to try everyone. All right, but more particularly Jacob. All right, because only Jacob is going to be able to receive salvation out of it. Now the other nations, they're going to be destroyed no matter what. Okay, whether they take it or not. All right, they don't receive salvation because why? Yahweh Shah only came for you so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans. All right, and that's another thing. You got Israelite camps that's now teaching contrary to that heathens can be saved in another type of capacity of salvation. No, they're going into slavery alongside the Edomites, the Moabites, the Hamites, the Ishmaelites. They all going into slavery. All right. So you must be assured in what you've been taught, or else you're going to be given over to itching ears, and you're going to be looking for those that can satisfy that itch. All right. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, it says in Deuteronomy 11 and 18 that, you know, you have to have your frontlets focused, and see that represent the mark in your head that if you take it, then, man, what kind of nonsense is that, man? Let's go there. Deuteronomy 11 and 18, because this is one of the precepts that they're not using to justify of saying that the mark is sin. Deuteronomy 11 and verse 18. It reads, Deuteronomy 11, 18. Therefore shall ye lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. Now, when you go into that word frontlet, it goes into what? Phylacteries, all right? And phylacteries was, just type in phylacteries, all right? But to make a long story short, it was a box, you know, that the Israelites will wear around their head to have the laws written in them to remember, all right? It ain't talking about committing sin to remember not to commit sin, and that's what the mark of the beast is. No, that frontlets goes into what? Phylacteries, all right? Which goes into what? A small leather-like box that is worn around the head that have the laws put in it to help you remember. That's what Yahweh was going into in Matthew the 23rd chapter. All right. The Sadducees and Pharisees that make the outside clean, but inside is dirty. Okay. He was going into what? They wear the phylacteries to remind them, but they deny the very essence of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, whose name in the Paleo Hebrew is Yahweh Shai, the Lord and Savior. They deny him when it's written all throughout the Old Testament. All right. So be very mindful, because they'll go to scriptures and it may sound good. All right. It may sound good to the unlearned. Job 10 and 14 is another one. Let's go there. This is the book of Job, chapter 10 and verse 14. This is a new one. Well, it's not new, but if you haven't heard it, it is. This is Job 10 and verse 14. It reads, if I sin, see? Oh, there you go. It says, if you sin, see? What does it say? If you sin. This is a good one. If you're not learned, if you don't want to look up words, this can get you. If you don't want to look up different translations, this could get you right here. Job 10 and 14 is a hardcore banger. All right. It says, if I sin, then thou markest me. Oh, see, it says, if you sin, thou markest me. Now, you can't tell me that the mark of the beast ain't sin. Job is explicitly saying right here, if thou sin, then thou markest me. That sounds like what the captain was telling us, that sin is the mark. See? That's not what it's saying, and we're going to get it in different translations. It goes on to read, and thou wilt not acquit me from my iniquity. See? Now, when you go into that word mark, it means to observe or to watch out. All right? So let's read this in a different translation. This is Job 10 and 14. Let's go to the NIV. Let's see what it says. Because at face value, it seems like you can have a point or a case to prove that the mark of the beast is sin. If thou sin, thou markest me. But look up that word mark, and you're going to see it means to watch or to watch over or to look out. So let's go there. This is Job chapter 10 and verse 14. And furthermore, those are two different words. This is a Hebrew word, and the mark in Revelation is a Greek word. So this is Job 10 and verse 14. Let's get this in a different translation. This is the NIV. It reads, if I sinned, you would be watching me and would not let my offense go unpunished. See, that's what it's saying. It's not saying if you sin, you're going to be marked in the sense that now you got the mark of the beast. No, you're going to be marked as in now that the Lord is watching you. It says in the ESV, if I sin, you watch me and do not acquit me of my iniquity. Right. Because the eyes of the Lord are everywhere, beholding the righteous and the wicked. So if you sin, the Lord sees you. All right. Not if you sin, you're marked and now you can't buy and sell, or now you can buy and sell, because what is it? If you got the mark, you won't be able to buy. It says if you have the mark, well, let's go there. Revelation 13. Let's see what it says. And let's plug in what these other camps believe and see if it makes sense. This is Revelation chapter 13 and verse 16. This is Revelation 13 and 16. It reads, and he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. So they say if you receive this mark, that means you got sin. That means you can what? It says to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. So you receive the sin in your right hand or in your forehead, which they saying are insinuating that if you commit sin, you're committing it with your right hand, or if you think about it, you're thinking about it with your forehead. So therefore you have been marked. It says, and that no man might buy or sell, save or except he that had the mark. So in order for you to buy and sell, according to prophecy and their understanding, you have to have thought about sinning, or you have had to actually commit sin. And then you go into the store and you tell the cashier or wherever, I just committed sin, or I'm about to think about sinning. Can I get this loaf of bread? That makes no sense whatsoever. But this is what they're telling you. This is the BS that they're having you to believe, and you're being deceived. That if you sin or you think about sinning, you go to the store and tell your cashier or whatever that you've just sinned, or that you're about to think about sinning, and you need to get a loaf of bread. How much sin do I gotta think about to get a loaf of bread? Do I gotta think about sleeping with someone else's wife to get me a loaf of bread and a bottle of water? Do I have to have sex on the Sabbath to receive my next month's rent? This is what they say when they're telling you that sin is the mark. And if you think of it, and if you think about it, it's in your forehead. And if you actually commit it, it's in your right hand. By those measurements, they're telling you that's how you're going to be able to eat and get your daily bread or your rations in this up and coming system. Which I'm not completely sure if they're not saying that we're already in the beast system. See, they may be already saying that we're in the beast system, which it doesn't make any sense because not all of us are sinning, and yet we're able to still go into the store and buy and sell. So that squashes that. All right. Not all of us sin daily, but we can still go and buy and get our, daily supply. All right. And furthermore, if we in the new covenant, how are we sinning in the first place? Makes no sense. You got to ask yourself these questions. All right. So let's go to 2 Corinthians 2:11. This is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11. All right, because this is what's pretty much happening right now. It reads 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11. Slakia. 2 Corinthians 2 and 11. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us. Right. See? And Satan can work on the minds of these so-called leaders in these camps. Okay? Doesn't necessarily have to work directly with Esau, Edom. Although he does, he can also work on the mind of you Israelite camp leaders that's doing the work deceitfully. It reads, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. See, you can't tell us something that don't make sense when we got something that does make sense on the other hand. Okay, and if you have the discernment of the Holy Spirit, you're gonna be able to see. All right, on this side, they're telling me that the mark is sin, but we are the buying and selling, and we're sinning. And on the other hand, they're telling us the mark of the beast is the RFID microchip, which if we take, then we will be deemed unworthy to be in the presence of the Holy Lamb, and that's how they're going to be able to say you need to buy and sell, is if you have this charagma or this RFID microchip, which makes more sense. Because why? The technology that's put onto that chip, now it can monitor you more precisely. Now it can tell where you're going at through what? Track it. All right. We see too many similarities to the RFID microchip to be the mark of the beast than it isn't. All right. We see the central bank digital currencies that they're pushing. We see the tracking, biometric tracking device system that they want to push. We see all this coming to pass. So for you to tell us that it's sin, it's as if you're saying that you're pretty much pissing on our legs and telling them that it's rain. All right. And for the most part, you're gonna have individuals that's okay with you pissing on their leg and you telling them that it's raining. But for the elect, no, we ain't gonna have that. All right. You're not gonna piss on our leg and tell us that it's rain. We know exactly what it is. Okay. We know that it's the RFID microchip, and there's no other thing you can say that can convince us otherwise, because why? We have been assured. Okay, we have been assured. So you can't go to verses like Revelation 17 and 4 and 5 to try to, somehow insinuate that because it says a right cup in the hand or in the forehead, that we can now associate that with having a mark in your right hand on your forehead. No, we know that's not the mark of the beast. We know you can't buy and sell with sin. So go back to the drawing boards and start all over, or just repent and say that you was off. You went off. That's all it takes, man. Put your pride to the side. You went off. Hey, the mark of the beast, we thought we had it, but through further research, studying to show ourselves approved, we were wrong on this. Okay, that's all it takes. Okay. Let's go there. Revelation 17 and verse 4 and 5, because this is what IUIC uses to justify their breakdown on the mark of the beast. Job 10 and 14 was ISUPK. All right. Now this is Revelation 17 and verse 4 and 5 for IUIC. This is their take or breakdown on what the mark of the beast is. This is Revelation chapter 17 and verse 4. It reads, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And they go and say, well, see, that woman is speaking of America and the different doctrines and philosophies that she has in her right hand. And if you adopt those, well, now you just been marked. Now you receive the mark. So that's how they justify you having the mark in your right hand. And they go on and read in the next verse where it says, verse 5, and upon her forehead, see, upon her forehead. Now, what did it say in Revelation 13? It said, if any man receive the mark in his right hand, we just read that, or in his forehead, see? Then they go on to read in verse 5, Revelation 17 and 5, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. See, we told you what it was. We told you it was sin. You can't buy and sell with sin, idiot. All right. If that's the case, we wouldn't be able to buy and sell right now. All right. It's the RFID microchip, and it hasn't been made mandatory yet. That's the mark spoken of in Revelation 13 and verse 16 to 18. It's not sin or sleeping with white women or embargoes. It don't make sense. They're doing the work deceitfully. Matter of fact, let's read that. Jeremiah 48. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 48, and verse 10. It reads, Jeremiah 48 and 10. Curse be he that doeth the work of Yahweh deceitfully. See? So a lot of you Israelite leaders that's doing the work deceitfully, you're going to get cursed, man. All right? Blood's going to be on your hand. First, what was that? 1 Peter 4 and 17. Judgment is going to begin with those that know the truth. All right? You knew what the word of Yahweh was, but you did it deceitfully. All right? You made merchandise, or you made you made merchandise of his word. All right? You did it deceitfully. You knew good and darn well what the mark of the beast was, but because your pride, you didn't want to admit to it, or you wanted to continue to make the people believe that you were the Messiah, in the sense that you got it all right? And having part of the mark of the beast breakdown, doing it deceitfully, is going to get you what? Destroyed. So it says, Jeremiah 48 and 10, curse be he that doeth the work of Yahweh deceitfully, and curse be he that keepeth back his sword from blood. See? You don't want to break down the correct breakdown, so you're going to allow the people to be what? Misled. You holding back your sword, all right? And in doing so, blood going to be on your hand and on their hand for believing you, all right? But more so yours, because you was put in a role to lead the city, your flock, your congregation, but you misled them. And when that trouble and fear come, when the hour of temptation arises, you're going to have their blood on your hands and your blood, all right? And you're going to be cursing that day unless you repent, all right? And make amends and tell exactly what the mark of the beast is, because it ain't hard to explain. Go into the Greek, go into the word charagma, go into the word stigma, and there you have it, all right? It ain't that difficult, all right? So let's go ahead and jump over to let's jump to Jeremiah chapter 3, and let's start at verse 15. This is Jeremiah 3 and 15. It reads, Jeremiah chapter 3 and verse 15. It reads, and I will give you pastors. See, the Lord is going to set up pastors, those that are led over the cities or the flock or the congregation. That's going to do what? It says, and I will give you pastors according to my heart. That's going to give you the proper breakdowns of these prophecies according to the Lord's heart. It says, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. And once you've obtained that knowledge and understanding and you're assured of, don't let anything compromise it, okay? Don't let anything compromise your assurance and your faith that you have believed and you were assured of, all right? Having the mark of the beast and its breakdown is something that you should be assured of in the times that we're in and getting ready to go into, all right? Having different breakdowns, having different understandings, that's going to get you jammed up, man. That's going to get you taken out, all right? Because why? You cannot serve two masters, all right? You can't, all right? Let's read that, matter of fact, in Matthew 6. You can't have it both ways, okay? Either the mark of the beast is the RFID microchip or it isn't. You can't have it both ways. This is the book of Matthew chapter 6 in verse 24. This is the book of Matthew chapter 6 and verse 24. It reads, this is red letter, so this is Yahweh Shai speaking. It reads, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will behold, or he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve the Most High and Mammon, okay? So you can't have it both ways, all right? Either the mark of the beast is the RFID microchip, or it isn't. You can't be double-minded. Oh, it ain't the mark of the beast ain't the RFID microchip, but if it comes out, we're not telling you to take it. Well, you are telling them to take it because you're not telling them that it isn't. All right? You're not telling them that the mark of the beast isn't sin. You're telling them that it is. So you can't say it's sin, and then if an RFID microchip comes out where it's made mandatory, then we're not telling you to take it. Because yes, although taking it is sinning, nobody's disputing that. It's a literal device, a physical device the size of a grain of rice. And literally, you're going to take it in order for you to buy and sell. It's not sin in all its, glory. No, taking the mark of the beast is a sin pursuant to Leviticus, the 19th chapter. I believe you should not make any cuttings in your flesh. But the actual device, the charagma, the mark, is a physical device, okay? And literally, you won't be able to buy and sell without it, all right? So stop trying to vacillate between what it is and what it isn't, and just come out and say without a shadow of a doubt what it is and why you shouldn't take it. Don't try to vacillate between the two. Oh, it's sin, but if the microchip come out, we're not telling you to take it. Well, you telling them to take it because you're not telling them what it isn't, or you're not telling them what it is, Salakia. All right? So you're allowing the people to lean on their own understanding when allegedly or supposedly they're supposed to be coming to you for what? Guidance and clarity, all right? But you're letting them down. Because why? Your pride, all right? Your pride won't allow you to admit that you were wrong on this, all right? So this is why it says, feed me food convenient for me, all right? Lest I be full and deny the Lord, or lest I be starving. Let me see if I can get that. Proverbs 30 and verse 4, is it? Proverbs 30 and verse 9. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 30 and verse 9. It reads, let me go up to verse 8. Remove, Proverbs 30 and verse 8. Remove far from me vanity and lies. And that comes alongside with pride. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me. See? So if your pride won't allow you to admit that you were wrong because you're so full of yourself, because of your congregation numbers and so on and so forth, it says, lest I be full, see, and deny thee and say, who is Yahweh? All right, because by you saying that the RFID microchip isn't the mark of the beast, you're denying that Yahweh made that proclamation to John the Revelator to prophesy about it. It says, or lest I be poor and steal and take the name of my power in vain. See? So we want to be even killed, all right? And the Lord knows the elect. He knows just the right amount to give the elect to keep them even killed, to continue in this work and to do it honestly and not deceitfully. Okay? Because now is the time of what? The time of, as the apostle said, apostasies. Okay? Where you're going to have people renouncing the truth, falling out of the truth. All right? You know, although they pretending, or although they still giving the illusion of being in the truth, they're falling out of the truth because of what? Their doctrine. All right? The mark of the beast. Heathens can be delivered or saved. Okay? All these other, heresies. All right? So that's why we got to continue to endure and be assured. All right? And this thing is about endurance. All right? It's about endurance. If you don't get it, if you have the elect, eventually you'll get it in your due time. Whenever the Lord decides for you to be open up to it, you will receive it. All right? But the elect, for sure, is going to endure. All right? They're going to get it right. By the end of it, when it's all said and done, the elect will have the truth. All right? They're going to have the 100% truth. Okay? When it's all said and done. Okay? We got to go on that walk. We got to, fight for that crown. Right? We got to obtain it. Okay? Every man's walk is different from the next. All right? We all have our walks specifically designed for us. Okay? And by the end of it, we're going to get the truth. All right? That's how we're going to know we are the elect, if we endure unto the end. And when we deliver and save out of Babylon the Great, all right, which is the United States of America and elsewhere where the Israelites have scattered, all right? So that's pretty much going to conclude this lesson on the mark of the beast is literal and physical. And with that being said, we're going to turn and face the east, and we're going to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, all right? Shalom, until the next time, if it be the Lord's will, stay strong, stay in the faith. We're almost home. Shalom. Peace.